Hello and welcome back to Yeti Kitchen. Today we're making fancy pants Irish stew. Let's start with half a large carrot, or a medium-sized one. Chop it into bigger than bite-sized chunks and set to the side. Next up, it's celery, about 2 to 3 stalks, and then let's chop it up much like the carrots and set that to the side as well. Now, what is an Irish stew without potatoes? I'm using about 10 to 12 mini potatoes, but this can be replaced with 2 to 3 medium-sized potatoes as well. If you're using mini potatoes, only cut about 3/4 of them in half and leave the rest whole. You'll see why soon. And of course we have some onion, a medium-sized onion. Half of a large onion would work great as well. Now we just want a rough chop like so. And some gnarly garlic, or just garlic. One whole one. Give it a chop and set it to the side along with the onions. And now the star of the show, and the only reason why this stew is called fancy. We're using rack of lamb. Though I personally enjoy using stewing lamb because it offers a deeper flavor because it needs to be braised, this cut is equally as delicious and rivals the tenderness in just half the time. You will want to separate the individual ribs by cutting between them, like so. Then season with olive oil and salt and pepper and mix well. Then we'll set that to the side and start creating our stew. Let's start by searing our lamb over medium-high heat. We don't want to cook these all the way. Some nice brown searing is all we're looking for at this point. After about 3 minutes, give them a flip. Oh man, these look delicious already. Now let's remove them and set them to the side. Let's add our onions and garlic immediately after removing the lamb. Give it a little jostle and add our carrots and celery. And of course, let's add half a can of Guinness, because what is an Irish stew without Guinness? If you want a less Irish deglazer, red wine works wonders as well. Let's mix it in and make sure we're getting all that beautiful, delicious fond off the bottom of the pot. While the alcohol is cooking off, let's add some fresh thyme. Dried works well as well. We need about 5 to 6 stems worth. You may recall I taught you how to properly remove thyme leaves in a previous video. Use that method to remove the desired amount. It's okay if you get a few stems in there, we can always remove them afterward. Keep in mind that all these steps are happening quite quickly. We aren't fully cooking anything yet, we're just setting up our stew. Next, add our potatoes. Season with a bit more salt and pepper as potatoes do absorb salt. Now let's add 4 cups of broth or stock. Any kind will work great for this recipe, but I will give my own opinion and say lamb broth is the best for a traditional recipe. It's hard to come by, so I'm using beef stock for this video. A tiny bit of nutmeg will elevate this dish. It's definitely optional, but I recommend it. Now let's add our lamb. No special way to do it, just as long as it's all covered. Make sure you're adding the juices from the lamb as well. You don't want to miss out on that. Now, once it comes to a boil, let's reduce the heat to low and cover for about 30 to 35 minutes. After about 35 minutes, this is what you can expect. Now remember when we only cut about 3/4 of our potatoes in half? That's because we will be crushing them into the stew to thicken it up and give it a bit more body. Delicious and fluffy. Now I added some water and potato starch slurry to thicken up my stew. Without having the hours of braising, this kind of thickness cannot be achieved naturally with these ingredients. Cornstarch is also a viable substitute for the potato starch, but not the best one in my opinion. Now turn off the heat and add some fresh parsley, about half a cup. A great addition to contrast with the rich and fatty flavors of the lamb. And here we are, a delicious, rich stew for cold winter days and a comforting meal to warm our hearts. Let's see how we did. Thank you for joining me again on Yeti Kitchen. Now with classes over till spring, I hope I can bring you more great recipes in between. If you have any recipes you'd like to see or have any advice, opinions, criticisms, please leave them in the comments. I do check all of them. Thank you again for all your support, and I'll catch you next time on Yeti Kitchen.